Super Mario Galaxy 2 is not only one of the highest rated Mario games, but also one of the highest rated games of all time. However, is this game worthy of such high praise, or is this game really overrated? Now, as most people have probably noticed, aesthetically Super Mario Galaxy 2 looks and feels very similar to the first Super Mario Galaxy. This in turn may cause some people to believe that Super Mario Galaxy 2 is just an extension of the first, with the same gameplay elements, similar bosses and stages, and the same items. In some regard that is true, as Galaxy 2 was started right after Galaxy 1 was released. It was initially supposed to be Galaxy 1.5. However, surprisingly, Galaxy 2 added in a lot of additions to the overall game. For instance, Galaxy 2 introduces 3 new power-ups: the Cloud Flower, the Spin Drill, and the Rock Mushroom, all of which allow for new and uniquely designed levels for Galaxy 2. Not only that, but Galaxy 2 brings back everyone's favorite green character, Luigi. Just kidding, nobody likes Luigi. No, I mean Yoshi, and unlike New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Yoshi is actually used a lot in this game. And just like Mario, Yoshi also has 3 power-ups of his own in the form of the Dash Pepper, Blimp Fruit, and Bulb Berry, which increase Yoshi's utility as well as increasing the amount of variation in level design. Of course, the Fire Flower, Boo Mushroom, Bee Mushroom, Spring Mushroom, and Rainbow Star make a return from Galaxy 1. However, unlike the new items introduced, the returning items are only seen in 1 or 2 levels, which is a little disappointing that they weren't used more, but at the same time this makes them more unique in the levels that they are used in. One thing that you'll notice is that Super Mario Galaxy 2's levels are much smaller and more varied than in other 3D Mario games. Instead of having large stages that you visit on multiple occasions, Galaxy 2 has smaller stages with only about 2 to 3 stars to collect on each. However, there are 7 worlds and 49 different stages to go to. Comparatively, the first Super Mario Galaxy had 7 worlds and 42 different stages. Also, like Super Mario Galaxy 1, Galaxy 2 has 242 stars to collect. However, unlike Galaxy 1, Galaxy 2 stars are all unique, as in order to get all 242 stars in the first game, you have to play through twice, once as Mario and again as Luigi, whereas in Galaxy 2, green stars become unlockable after you beat the game. Unlike regular power stars, green stars are kinda just thrown throughout a level, and it's up to the player to find them. The only clues you get as to their whereabouts is when you are near them you can hear them sparkling. Also, sometimes when you do a flyby of the galaxy you can see some of them off in the distance. In order to get a lot of the green stars, you'll need to think outside the box and learn how to fully make use of Mario's abilities. What I like about the green stars is that they offer a challenge, as you'll often need to get creative when trying to get them, which really tests your abilities and sometimes patience. As I said earlier, the levels in Galaxy 2 are more varied than other Mario games. Some of this is because levels are smaller and there are fewer power stars in each level. It's not like Mario 64 where every stage had a level where you had to collect red coins. Instead, levels can have a few different objectives. Every level has your traditional get to the end of the stage star. Then others have you collect 5 silver stars to make a power star, play some minigame till you get a star from this weird monkey, or fight a boss to get a star. Then there are prankster stars that show up that have alternate goals and stages, like collecting 100 purple coins, speed running through a stage, playing through a sped up version of a stage, doing a stage with 1 health segment, or outrunning Cosmic Mario to get to the goal. Of course, some stages also utilize the different items in the game to help you reach the goal. Overall, most of the levels you play in the game are uniquely designed or have unique objectives in them that makes playing each stage feel original, which is incredibly rare for a game, especially a Mario game. As for the bosses in the game, I'll admit that most of the bosses in this game aren't as memorable as bosses in previous Mario games. However, I believe the reason for that is because there are so many different bosses. Super Mario 64 had 9 bosses, Super Mario Sunshine had 10, Super Mario Galaxy had 15, and Super Mario Galaxy 2 had 21, so obviously it's understandable that not many of these bosses stand out. And just because they're not necessarily memorable doesn't mean they're bad. As a matter of fact, a lot of these bosses are pretty unique in how you battle them, as sometimes you'll get an item like the Rock Mushroom that you'll have to use against them. Other bosses make you hit projectiles at them, and then there are bosses where you just have to dodge their attacks and strike back. One complaint that people seem to have about this game is that there is no hub. Sure, technically speaking, Starship Mario could be considered a hub, What people really mean is that levels aren't accessed by exploring the hub, but instead by choosing from an overworld map like in Super Mario World. Because of this, people also believe that Galaxy 2 is too linear. Quite frankly, I feel that these claims are bullshit. First off, and maybe I'm in the minority here, but I find hubs annoying. I don't like having to run all over a hub to get to a level, when I could just as easily choose from an overworld map. I mean, what purpose did Peach's castle really have in Super Mario 64, other than to connect the other worlds together? You could argue that there are bonus levels and stars hidden in Peach's castle, so? Who the fuck cares? There are 120 bonus stars in Galaxy 2, and not only that, but there are 20 hidden stars in levels as well. Second, Galaxy 2 isn't any more linear than any other Mario game. You just perceive it as such because of the way the levels are laid out. In every 3D Mario game, you usually need a certain number of stars to access the other levels, and the same goes for Galaxy 2. If you collect enough stars in earlier levels, when you enter a new world, you can pretty much unlock every stage at the get-go. Now of course, in some worlds you have to get one star in a level in order to access another, but is that really that big of a deal? Chances are you were going to need to go there anyway. Why does it matter what order you go to the stages in? I don't know, but for me, not liking Galaxy 2 because it doesn't have a hub is just plain stupid. It's not like you're spending most of your time in the hub world, so why does it matter if the game has a hub anyway? Another problem that some people might have with the game is that there's too much assistance. Some characters will tell you how to perform certain moves if you talk to them, and there are also signs that you can read that will give you hints about stuff in the game. Brown signs will give you a hint about the level, where green signs will show you a tutorial on how to use items. There is also a cosmic spirit that will appear if you lose too many lives in a stage, that you can use to help you get the star. However, using the cosmic spirit will turn the star into a bronze star. Now the thing about all these tutorials and hints is that they are pretty much all optional. If you choose so, you can ignore reading all of the signs and talking to the other characters, so it's not really that big of an issue. Unlike some of the other entries in the Mario series, Super Mario Galaxy 2 is tough. Most of the time the game feels difficult without being unfair, but there are instances when the game really ramps up the difficulty. For instance, I had some problems with the Chomp Works, where in one level you need to use the Spring Mushroom in order to jump over the chomps. The problem with this part is that for one, the Spring Mushroom is shitty. The fact that it's in a perpetual state of motion, as well as the fact that you need to hold down the jump button in order to gain enough height, makes using the spring tough when you have little time to react. Not only that, but you're also standing on a thin strip of land over lava, which makes this even more difficult, as I would usually get hit by one of the chomps, then I would fall into the lava, which resulted in me losing the spring and also 2 life segments. The real problem with this though is that this is a regular star. It's not a hidden star or a prankster star, where I could understand this being difficult. That being said, these unfair difficulty spikes are usually isolated instances, and overall I think the game does a good job of balancing out the difficulty. Looking at the controls, I actually have mixed feelings about them. On one hand, they fucking suck. The nunchuck's control stick feels like a pad of warm butter. Its movement is sometimes sporadic, and I found that my thumb was constantly slipping off when I was trying to move. I'm also not too big of a fan of motion controls. In most cases, when they were around, I felt that it would have been easier if control was regulated to button presses. That being said, for the most part the motion controls did work and were just more of an annoyance than a hindrance. However, there were a few cases where the controls took me out of the game. One is in the case of Fluzzard. I really don't know why, but usually in every 3D Mario game there's one segment where you have to ride some stupid animal and they all control like shit. Super Mario Sunshine had Blooper Racing, Galaxy 1 had the Manta Ray, and Galaxy 2 has Fluzzard. The problem with all these creatures is that their controls are incredibly loose and imprecise, which means that you're constantly fighting when trying to make turns and avoiding obstacles. Not only that, but Fluzzard feels really heavy for some reason. Maybe that's because he has a fat Italian man hanging onto him, but still, that doesn't excuse Fluzzard's poor controls. Another time I found the controls frustrating was in the fight against Squizzard. Now in order to fight the boss, you need to collect the fire flowers and shoot fireballs in his mouth. It sounds easy enough, and it is, except for the fact that for some reason I would spin the controller and Mario wouldn't shoot fireballs at all. It got to the point where I was basically just dodging attacks and hopelessly swinging the remote to hopefully attack the boss. For the most part, the camera in the game isn't too bad. In a lot of places, the camera is locked into a certain angle in order to focus the player's sight on a certain direction. However, you can move the camera and go into first person mode and look around in places that are open to get a better view of your surroundings. That being said, sometimes the game can be just plain disorienting. This usually results from the game-changing gravity when Mario walks on the walls or ceilings. It's cool to see the game switch perspectives and use gravity in unique ways. However, these ideas don't always pan out, as getting used to the control change can be difficult to do, especially when there are balls of fire or enemies right on your ass. Not only that, but there are a few times when the game requires you to do a leap of faith in order to reach a platform or star, since the camera is angled in a way where the star or platform is off-screen. Now I do have a small issue with one thing in this game, and that is the life system. I know every Mario game since its inception has had lives, but I feel as though the notion of lives is outdated. For starters, lives are incredibly easy to come by. There are many games that reward lives, there are lives littering the stages, you can get lives for every 100 coins or every 100 star bits you collect, and you can even buy lives with star bits. Lives are so easy to come by that after the first world I had 40 lives. But that's not all to the issue. Even though lives are easy to come by, after you decide that you're done playing the game and quit, once you start up again, all those lives you got are gone, and you restart with 4 lives. Now this isn't new to Super Mario Galaxy 2. Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Galaxy 1 both had a similar policy on lives. But still, I wish they'd either make lives hard to come by, let you keep them, or just got rid of them altogether. I mean, the reason they give you so many lives is so you don't game over it as easily, isn't it? So why make players restart with 4 lives? Another issue I had with this is that when I had all those lives, I didn't really need them since it was the beginning of the game. But later on, when stages became more difficult and I was forced to restart with 4 lives, I would have to grind for more lives. And even if they let you keep all of your lives or got rid of them altogether, it wouldn't make the game easier. It would just mean that players had more chances to beat a level. It would mean that levels could be more difficult. All things considered, the real question though is this game overrated? Honestly, I don't think it is as far as Mario games go. Super Mario Galaxy 2 is a perfect evolution of the series in terms of design, gameplay, and difficulty. Even though Galaxy 2 is a sequel to Galaxy 1, Galaxy 2 uses the first as a foundation for its gameplay instead of a crutch, and in most cases improves upon Galaxy 1's formula. That doesn't mean that it is a perfect game, as there are some places that can be improved upon, but Galaxy 2 certainly sets the bar for future 3D Mario games.